Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship, specifically, is what I'll be talking about today. Indeed, it is a fantastic book. As you can see by my garb, I am enjoying it very much. But there is a lot that is different in the book from the film that I've noticed, like, a lot. For starters, Bilbo Baggins and Frodo. Their relationship is a lot closer than depicted in the film. And while you barely see the two together in the book, they actually conspire with each other for Bilbo's prank at his birthday party, the disappearance and the use of the ring to get away from his entire family. They both planned this together. Frodo was in on it. It's interesting to think how little characterization the two have been given together in the film. But again, in the book, they're as close as can be, and even Frodo is well aware of the ring at this point, while obviously Gandalf is not. And while it takes a very small amount of time for Gandalf to find out that this is the One Ring, it takes Gandalf months and months and months before he finds out what it is. And even with the whole "my precious" scene with Bilbo, Gandalf is still unsure of what the ring is, and he goes to counsel with others and to research about this before actually making the decision and telling Frodo that this is the One Ring and that he must go on this great quest. Another interesting thing of note is just how old Frodo is. Like, very, very old. It's crazy. In the story of the film, he seems around 19 years old and leaves after Bilbo's 111th birthday. But he's like 40 when he leaves in the book. He's around 40 years old in the book when he leaves on his quest. It's a long time before Gandalf actually talks to Frodo about the nature of the ring that he holds. And it starts to take a hold on him over time. I actually really like that touch. In the film, it kind of feels a little rushed how quickly the ring sort of takes over Frodo. Like, it's been maybe a couple months by the time he can't even throw it into Mount Doom. But to me, it makes a lot more sense if he spent literal years with this ring in his pocket, as it slowly takes a grasp on him, and even though he's a good person still, with a kind heart and good soul, it still has this hold on him, this darkness over him. I do enjoy that. Bilbo, Gollum, and Frodo all should have an extended period of time with the ring, in order to make it believable that they would give in to its evil. I like that. It shouldn't just be, oh, he had the ring for a couple of days, and then it completely takes over him. He's not a mortal man nor an elf. He isn't the same as them. He's much different. And hobbits are much more pure-hearted, at least when it comes to their influence from the ring. They're able to resist it for longer, and it doesn't take its hold as easily. And I like that. And again, I enjoy how it's more of an addiction story with Frodo, Bilbo, and Gandalf, where they both slowly over time became even more and more and more obsessed with it. Yes, Gollum killed for the ring at first, but still, it didn't have a complete control over him yet. And yet over time it did. Same with Bilbo and Frodo. It took complete control in the end of Frodo, and Bilbo barely escaped its grasp. And Frodo only escaped it because Gollum bit off his finger. I like that. And it's a change I wish they didn't make in the films. And there are plenty more changes like it that I don't like from the films. Another thing I like about the books is that I enjoy how much effort is put into Frodo's plan to leave the Shire. It isn't just, I'm going on a journey with Sam, we're leaving, no explanation to anyone. It is, I'm going to make this plan. Pippin is going to help me, Sam's coming with me, he knows the whole spiel, and I am going to leave town. I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to make it seem like I'm leaving Bag End, leaving the Shire, and I'm going to Buckleberry, and I'm not going to come back. I'm going to make it so that I feel like everyone is going to think I'm going on an extended holiday or a forever retirement, so that nobody suspects that I'm leaving. It doesn't go quite the plan, but I like that detail because it kind of explains how Frodo just kind of leaves. Nobody's going to follow him, and less people who want to find him are less likely to find him. I like that, although it is kind of a shame that he told everyone the path he's going, because that makes it easier for the Black Riders to find him. Yes. That's what we'll talk about next. The Nazgul's introduction, the first couple of chapters of Lord of the Rings, is very different from the films. Instead of just outright showing you the Nazgul every time and going, ooh, these are the bad guys that are chasing Frodo and the gang, and they race after them and they barely make it onto the ferry, instead of that, it's more of a mystery. There are these mysterious Black Riders, making sniffing smells and chasing after them. There are these hooded figures, these masqueraded individuals whom you cannot see their face nor their appearance, but you only have the testimony of others to go off of. Each time you hear about them, it's only once where we get a direct testimony from when one is sniffing over them, but every time they're shrouded by darkness or they're told from the perspective of another, and that adds a mystery element. Is it the Nine? Is it the servants of the Dark Lord? Or is it just someone who happens to be passing by with a curious mind? Is it Aragon? Who knows? In fact, no one knows, not until it will be revealed later. I am excited to see that. But I do enjoy that a lot. I like the idea of it being a mystery where nobody knows who the Black Riders are or which ones the Black Riders will be. Which ones will be the Nine? Which one will be Aragorn? Which one is it Merry, who's just on a pony? Yes, that is one of the reveals. It adds a sort of sense of tension to every single time they even mention a horse that is of dark color and a hooded figure. Every time they mention it, you're like, uh-oh. Is it them? Could it be friend or foe? You're not sure. It's unknown, and you can't know. I enjoy that. It's very good, and it's excellent writing that I wish they included in the films. That would have been such an interesting idea. Could you imagine the film starts off with the testimony of a man, and he's talking in the background over it, and you don't know if it's true or not, and each person's testimony is slightly different, and because of their testimonies, Frodo immediately imagines the creature he came across underneath the root, the tree that he was hiding under. Could you imagine that? I think that would be so interesting. It's a shame they left that out. Another part a lot of people who enjoyed the books might not have liked was the part where they cut out the elves. I'm not talking about the elves in Rivendell. I'm talking about the elves they come across in the Shire. You see, not only is there a moment where the Black Rider does come across the roots of a tree and sniff around for Frodo, but right after that moment in the book, another Black Rider comes, except it crawls around creepily in the dark, in the murky grass, slowly coming towards Frodo. And as he's tempted to put on the ring, some elves come by. The Black Rider vanishes and runs away with a horrible screech. And the elves come over and the hobbits run towards them. And they all embrace and speak and have a merry evening. They drink together, have food, have a wonderful evening. And another thing is revealed that Frodo speaks Elvish. What? This was never revealed in the movie, I don't think, but he knows some Elvish, and they call him Elf Friend for this reason. Gildor and his friends help Frodo out, and he actually imparts some wisdom as well. You see, instead of Gandalf or Aragorn talking about the Nine and how they play a role in the whole story, it's Gildor who says some things about it. The elves are a little bit less forward with information, as it's a great burden on people, and, well, a lot of blame can be passed around if you say something that you shouldn't. So the elves tend to not say much, but because Frodo is an elf friend, he tells Frodo of the Black Riders. He doesn't tell much, but what he does say is that they are servants of the One. It's a wonderful reveal, and I really like that. And of course, Gildor is like, well, you want to learn more? I told you they're the scions of Satan. What more do you need, boy? Go, get out of here. But I like that, and I really wish they kept in Gildor and his elf crew. It would have been interesting. But anyways, that's not all that they changed. Another interesting change is how in the Shire, they're not completely cut from the outside world. People in the Shire and nearby taverns talk about Ents walking around, or sort of visages of large creatures in the distance that they've never seen before, and that sort of ties them closer into the world. I didn't like how alienated the Shire felt in the Peter Jackson films. Of course, these films are a masterpiece, but they didn't have any interconnectivity with the wider world, other than maybe Gandalf and paths that lead to the outside world. But nobody was talking about monsters or ring wraiths or any mention of Sauron or old legends. Everyone just felt disconnected. But when the people of the taverns and Samwise Gamgee talk to a bartender about creatures he sees in the distance or things that he claims to see, they call him crazy or a half-wit, but at least everyone is aware of this mythology that is in the world. I like that so much more. I hate how Hobbiton was just this disconnected place, how the Shire was just completely cut off from the rest of the world's mythology in a lot of ways. But I like how in the book, people actually talk about the events of the world, and how elves actually visit Hobbiton. There are people there are elves, and yes, there's humans in the movie, but there's a lot more variety with who's in Hobbiton. and there's a lot more people talking about the going-ons of the outside world. Another thing of note that I think is very important is how much they sort of cut out of Sam's character. It's very interesting. Sam isn't really displayed as the brightest fellow of the group, but he's obviously very loyal, just like in the films. But what I really don't like that they cut out is the comedic effect that Sam has with the elves. I really enjoyed that. Sam has this sort of obsession with seeing elves for the very first time, and it's very interesting in the first couple of chapters. And when he finally meets an elf, he nearly faints, and I thought that was so fun. And I also liked how afterwards he was kind of underwhelmed by the situation, and he certainly was changed by it. He didn't expect what he saw, and I really liked how that was played off for laughs at first, but sort of spiraled into some sort of character development. He even spoke to Frodo about it, and talked about life and how he actually was kind of disappointed by meeting the elves. It wasn't what he expected. And I like how they had this heartfelt moment where they sort of grow as characters already. I just wish they had this little comedic effect in the movie still. I think that would have been so fun. And it would have been interesting and would have added a little more to Sam's whimsical character. I like Sam in the movies, but that would have been a fun little touch, I think. Instead of just making him the loyal one, it gives him a little more character outside of that. You see, all the way up to Frodo's journey to Bucklebury in their new home, Frodo realizes something when Pippin, Merry, and Sam fess up to him that they know about the ring, and they know about his plan to go. And they actually kept this a secret to him for a while. And Sam was actually the guy telling them everything, and he was worried about Mr. Frodo and made sure that he'd have a merry band of people that would help him out. And I like that. I mean, obviously, Sam being the loyal one, you'd think wouldn't do that, but I like that he cared so much about Mr. Frodo that he doesn't mind keeping this little secret from him to try and help him keep him safe. I like that. That's very fun. And it definitely characterizes the hobbits a little bit more. I also noticed that Merry and Pippin aren't as much of pranksters and troublemakers as they appear in the movie. They have hijinks and things to blame for later on, but so far they're quite responsible, and they're actually quite upstanding. They're not quite the troublemakers that Gandalf loves to throw around every now and then. They're quite normal, I dare say. Another unique addition is that Fatty Bolger, yes, that is his name. Don't ask, there's a lot of weird names, but Fatty Bolger is the one who's going to be taking care of Frodo's new house. I understand why they took this out of the film, as he's rarely mentioned, I'm sure, ever again. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen him since in the book. Very little about Fatty Bolger is in the book, so I get why they cut him out, but still. It's interesting that they have an entirely different Hobbit character who's unwilling to go on the adventure with them, but is willing to hold down the fort of Frodo's new home. I think that's neat. And again, it definitely builds out the wider array, and it's not just these 4 misfits that live in Hobbiton that go on this adventure together. There's more people that they know that they're friends with, and obviously aren't as close with them, as he's not willing to go on this journey with them. And I really, really like that they feel more connected with each other. Also, by the way, I haven't heard of Rosie once so far. Not a single mention. I don't know if she's going to be more relevant in the second book or later on in this one. All I know is I haven't heard a lick about Sam's future wife, so I'll see how that goes. I'm eagerly awaiting what happens next. The thing I want to talk about the most here is forest. You see, after they leave the outskirts of Hobbiton, there's actually a gigantic hedge, thick and strong, that sort of acts like a barrier wall that keeps people out of the Shire. They have a secret pathway underneath the hedge in which they can leave into the forest. And what I like about the forest, how creepy and eerie and kind of horrifying it is to read at night. I was reading this in the dead of night. It's so scary. The way that Tolkien describes the trees is kind of frightening in a way. He says these wooden fingers that scrape across the sky, reaching towards those that would dare walk beneath them, as branches sway and fall almost purposely in their path. These perilous roots that twist and wind around their feet. It's horrifying, and I love how the trees loom over whenever they pass by. And the fact that this whole forest is sentient and conscious and alive really adds something to the horror of it all. Like, there are eyes everywhere, and you may not see them, but they are there indeed. There was something so unsettling about the whole scenario, and how weary they felt every time they went farther into the forest, how tired they were getting, and how fearful they were of the night. I really appreciated that. And even though there weren't any goblins or creatures like that in the forest itself being the threat was so creative and so interesting. And I love the inclusion of Old Man Willow. Again, I wish they added this into the movie. It would have been so interesting. In short, Old Man Willow is a very, very old willow tree that enjoys luring people in and trapping them in his roots as he slowly crushes them to death. And another thing I really like is while Frodo and Sam is the one who actually saves everybody, but while Frodo and Sam try to start a fire to save Pippin and Merry from being crushed from the inside of this thing, the trees actually react to the fire and they threaten to crush Merry and Pippin and take their lives with them if they don't snuff it out. It's so cool and it's so interesting. It's this horrifying situation where the trees are just as threatened as the hobbits. It's kind of like a Mexican standoff where, like, I'll shoot you. Oh, yeah? I'm going to kill your friend if you burn mine. So don't do that. It's interesting and it's really crazy. And you really feel the tension of the moment, like Sam's about to light them on fire, and Pippin just starts screaming and shouting, like, no, don't do it! He'll crush me, don't do it! And you hear this horrible laughter from the creature. It's insane. And it's so scary and threatening. And it's really well done. The scene is just complete chaos. And I love how out of nowhere, the man, the myth, the legend himself comes rushing in, old Tom Bombadil. I like Tom. It's another shame that they cut him out of the movie as well, because Tom Bombadil is essentially this incredibly powerful being that's as old gets. And he just walks right up to Old Man Willow, whispers into the crack of his roots, and he releases Merry and Pippin. I like that. That's very fun. He's this crazy little guy who's running around, and I love how they don't describe him as this huge, towering, lumbering man, but he's taller than a hobbit. He's a normal stature for a man. I love he has this big beard and his bright yellow boots and his blue jacket, and my favorite part about him is how he's always singing. I love it. It's just so whimsical and fun. It's a great contrast to how horrifying the situation is. You know, it starts off with these horrible trees reaching down with these roots crawling over their feet, taking them deep within them as they're crushed to death. And then out of nowhere, old Tom Bombadil comes in, bouncing around with his water lilies, and saves them. I think that's so fun. He's just jumping around and dancing with his wife and just having a good old time. Tom's living the best life. He figured out life. Just live out somewhere in the woods with your wife. It's a fantastic contrast to just how dreary the situation is and how beaten down and scared they are. And then boom, a ray of sunshine and hope comes in and takes them into his home. And of course, Tom's wife is another character in it, in which not much characterization is given to her. They're both married though, so that's nice. And she's very whimsical, just like Tom. But I really like Tom out of the two of them. He's my favorite. I'm sorry, fellas. If you like the River Daughter, good for you. But Tom's my favorite character. Hands down, I love that. And when he describes the Barrow Wights and all of these tall tales to the hobbits as he's singing them to bed sometimes and tucking them in, I love it. It's so fun. Another incredible inclusion, in my opinion, is when Tom wears the ring. Because I didn't even notice at first either. I was taken off guard. I had completely forgotten. I don't know how Tolkien does it. I don't know how. But Tolkien has this incredible ability to just make me feel the same way Frodo does. I don't know if that's just me. But when Tom put on the ring for the first time, and immediately knew about Sauron and all that, I was like, oh, so you have the ring. Give it to me. And when he puts it on, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, okay, he's wearing the ring, so. And then when it's written, Frodo just realized that he didn't go invisible. I just went, you're right. Tom Bombadil didn't go invisible. It had no effect on him. And he just gives it back to Frodo like nothing. No possession, no desire to keep it. And remember how Gandalf talks about how, oh, no, I would desire to use it for good, but it would consume me and use for evil. Tom Bombadil's just like, okay, cool, here you go. Gives it back like it's nothing. And it really showcases Tom as this fun, whimsical, interesting character that you really don't know much about. When they had to leave Tom and his wife and go back on their journey, I kind of did feel sad, because their home was very cozy and fun and unique, and I really did enjoy it. It was a pleasurable experience, to say the least, and it was a worthy inclusion in the book. So, I dare say it's more than worth it, and I really wish they had a sort of extra extended edition. But in any case, I'm glad with what we got. It's a fantastic film series, and Tom Bombadil, you will be sorely missed, and you were absolutely wasted in Rings of Power. You were absolutely wasted in Rings of Power. I'm not going to talk much about Tom Bombadil in Rings of Power. I'll just say this. He doesn't seem merry. He's not singing all the time. He's not wearing his blue jacket. It's just on a wall somewhere. And he's not colorful or fun. Tom Bombadil is just this happy-go-lucky fellow who's just dancing around and being fun. But he always talked like this in this show, and he's always so sullen and grey. You know, if I didn't know better, I would have thought he was Gandalf the Grey from how grey he looks. I really think that was really wasted on Rings of Power. But in any case, we're not talking about Rings of Power. We're talking about the books today. In the book, there isn't a great emphasis on this, but there is a slight emphasis on Frodo's dreams and the meeting with Flint. They're always very archaic, with lights on the ocean and him waking up in cold sweat and fear and these very odd, sometimes archaic dreams that you don't really understand. And Frodo's completely scared of them. And I think that's interesting. I feel like they're building towards something, and I really want to know what it is, and I'm curious to learn. The 2 times that I've seen it so far is one time when they're sleeping outside alone, and when he's at Tom Bombadil's house. I really enjoy that. Another thing I like, one more thing about Tom Bombadil's house. I like how, despite the trees scraping at the walls and all that, the hobbits are consoled and feel comfortable with the words that Tom and his wife told them, simply saying, "Nobody's touching you in here. You are safe. No harm will come or befall you. You are safe. Rest easy." I like that. So they're like, okay, scary trees outside, we don't have to deal with them yet. In the Fellowship of the Ring, there's a little prologue that talks a little bit about what happened in The Hobbit, and it mostly talks about riddles in the dark, especially when Gandalf talked to Bilbo about the ring. And I really like this scene, and it's super different from the movie. Well, how that goes is Gollum has one more riddle to tell Bilbo. Bilbo just so happens to say time when Gollum slips up, giving him a hint by accident, and then Bilbo is asked by Gollum to give him one more question. Not a riddle, a question. So Bilbo, taking advantage of this, just says, "What do I have in my pocket?" Gollum can't answer, he's given 3 guesses, and he loses. Well, Bilbo figures out that, I probably shouldn't have said that, because now Gollum's angry, and he figures out that he doesn't have his ring. And he comes to the conclusion that Bilbo had taken it. So Gollum chases after Bilbo, they sort of have this little scuffle, and then Bilbo, just like Frodo in the first movie, gets the ring put on his finger, and he disappears, getting away from Gollum. Well, in the books it's quite different. I'd never read The Hobbit, I should probably read that one too, but from what I understand and what the book tells me, it was more of a game for the ring. He apparently won the ring by winning the game. Obviously, Gollum wouldn't have let him take the ring if he had won, but he got away just in time to escape from Gollum. But Bilbo claims that he won the ring fair and square. And I think that's a very interesting change, because it kind of builds Bilbo's character in a positive way. It doesn't make him a sort of thief who's just willing to take this lovely ring. Well, instead, it's just him winning the ring. And when he's keeping this thing that's obviously becoming a detriment to his health, he uses that as a crutch, a sort of defense to continue keeping the ring. I really enjoyed that. It was like, well, no, it's mine. I won it. It's my precious. It's mine now. I won it. It's mine, fair and square. He uses that as an argument, and I really wish they utilized that in the films, because it would have been interesting. But again, with Lord of the Rings being the first film coming out before The Hobbit far later, I understand why they cut it out. Well, moviegoers and the average viewer don't have that information to go off of. Another really fun change, I think, in my opinion, is Gandalf's exposition about the ring. I really like how the story of the ring is so old and lost to time that Gandalf has to literally research the story. And instead of Galadriel's voice just kind of exposition dumping to us about the ring and Gollum and all of that, I really like how Gandalf is the one who reveals to Frodo, saying, I had to do my research. I had to pick up texts older than time itself, and I had to read about this. And I learned that this is the ring of the bad guy. Not any bad guy, he's the guy. It's the guy. I really did enjoy that. I also liked Frodo's unwillingness to go on this adventure too. He's like, why must it be me? Why can't you carry it? And he always talked to Gandalf and asked all these questions. And I also found it interesting how Frodo's line about how Bilbo could have killed Gollum happens in the Shire instead of the Mines of Moria. It's another interesting change. I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of changes like that all over the movie series. And I can't wait to see them all. And I hope you all enjoy me pointing them all out, because the more you enjoy this, the more I make of it. In any case, that's all. See you later.